Awesome. All right. Hey, so what's up? All right, hey, so what we're going to learn about is connecting and bridging the gap between a database, a language, SQL, and Ruby. How we're going to use Ruby to do something called ORM, which is Object Relational Mapping. So we're going to define what ORM is, and we're going to do these. All right. So while you're reading through, I'm also kind of trying to explain what an ORM is. What it's going to do is each one of your tables, right? Let's just say you had books and authors. You have a books table and you have an authors table, all right? You basically did create table, you put the table names, and you put like text field or something, right? And now that you have those two, you want those lined up to your Ruby models, right? Which are your classes. So if you had a books table in your SQLite 3 database, and then you had a books class, a books model that you wrote in Ruby, you're going to want them connected. You're going to want to refer or write in Ruby, refer to your books class, and get information from your books table from your SQL database, right? So it's actually going to map the attributes of book to the columns inside your books table. All right? If that didn't make sense, I'm going to literally try to draw it for you. All right? So, books and authors, right? Each book has a single author, and book should have a name. I'm going to try to draw out what the books table looks like in very, very non-generic ASCII art. And so, what do we put inside the books table? What's the first column in here? Cool. All right? And what's the other column? Man, I failed. It should have a title. Very good. Wow, that was a quick adjustment. All right. Anything else? It has something called a foreign key, right? Who has heard of this concept? All right. Who is brave enough to try to explain it? Chris.
The foreign key is going to relate that book to the row to a different table where the primary ID key is the owner of that book.
Yes. So we have a concept in relational databases known as primary key, right? So every single book that you make is going to have a primary key, right? 1, 2, 3, right? Every single time you make one, it will be automatically auto-incrementing a new ID. That way it never duplicates and you're only ever referring to one at a time, all right? Does that make sense? So the author ID, this is known as a foreign key. This is going to relate to the author's ID right here. So we talked about the relationship between books and authors. What is the relationship between books and authors? Books belong to the author, right? So we have this concept that if it belongs to something else, it has the foreign key. If you heard me say that before, hopefully it makes sense now. The books will belong to the author. So it must have the foreign key. If you do not like memorizing, I'm going to show you why this works, and then I'm going to painfully show you why the other way will not work. All right? So, what's a book somebody's reading right now? All right? Great. Stuff My Dad Says, right? All right, who has heard that book before? All right? Who knows who wrote this book? Okay, great. Your dad, right? So I can point to the primary key in author and say that the author ID is 1. Meaning, your dad wrote Stuff My Dad Says, right? That may not be the official title, but it is for today's class. Sean, what was that book you were actually reading?
You're going to make me say it again after you made fun of it?
Actually, I didn't make fun of it. I just completely ignored it. There's a difference.
How do you use for War, Volume 1.
100 Years War, Volume 1. That sounds like the most fun book to possibly read. And who wrote it?
Jonathan Sumption?
With HN or ON?
No H.
So John,
A thin.
just John, right? We're just going to put John for the purposes of what's going on here. No, I'm sorry. This is name. My bad. Oops, wow. This is why lecture is going to be long. I'm sorry. These are just strings, right? Cool. They're just strings. There's no reason for the space here. I just wanted it to be better formatted, but thank you for pointing that out. Cool. Right? So now I know that author ID number 2, so author ID number 2, John, wrote this book. I could just take a wild guess and say that he probably wrote volume 2. Right? So what author ID am I putting here? 2, right? Probably. I mean, not a good idea, because at this point, I'd blow my brains out.
So how many years?
Okay, great. I get it. All right. I get it. Great.
500 years.
Right? Okay. All right. Very good. So do you see how this works, right? Like, I've got this author with ID 2, right, that wrote these 4 books. That's how I'm getting this information in SQL. This is what it looks like, right? So I can reference, hey, author ID, who is 2? Right? 2 is John. So if I select star from, right, I can start to infer what's going on. Where the author ID is 2, give me all the books, it's going to spit these out. That's how that's working under the hood. Does anyone need me to say that again? Pretty straightforward, right? So let's write the SQL, all right? Let's write the SQL. What is it? Help me out. Select everything from what table? Books table, right? Where what? Where what? Okay, sure. Author.id equals 2. Sorry, my bad. 2, right? So far, so good? Nothing wild? All right. Now let me show you the pain of, let's just say you didn't remember that the books belonged to the authors and therefore has the foreign key, right? I'll play your game, all right? Boop, boop, boop. I'll just get rid of these, all right? We don't need author ID. What we need here is a what? Book ID, all right? Let's just say you mix the foreign key up. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm mixing the foreign key. This is wrong. This is bad. And I will show you why. Right? So far, so good. NBD. Right? Your dad. Right? Book ID. 1. Great. John. Book ID. 2. What happens when you bring in this? 12. Whatever. Sure. 12. All right? What happens when John writes volume 12? What do we do here? We could do a couple things, all right? We could do this, which is obviously a good idea, all right? Who thinks it just looks right? Like, why would you create, like, oh my God. He wrote some more books, all right? 16, he just doesn't know how to count, whatever. Book, ID 3, it's fine. I'm sure he's a great author. And then also, what? What book ID is this? I'm sorry, I did that wrong. 3, 4. I need to be 3 and 4. Does this even look like it makes sense? How would I write a SQL query for this? Select star books where ID equals to 2, 3, and 4. But unless I was looking directly at this database, I wouldn't be able to pull which IDs I needed for the right author for that book. You know what I mean? Like, I'd have to be seeing it, and then I'd make a SQL query based on that. But as you've seen, databases can be massive, right? Do I want to manually be looking through a database to pull IDs to like write them in to write a SQL statement for it? That's redundant and ineffective, right? What else did you say? You said I can probably do this. 2, 3, 4. All right, and then I can get rid of this. Ooh, that's looking pretty good, except it's not, right? How would I write the SQL query for this? Yes. This also follows the single source of truth, that single source of responsibility principle, where one thing is responsible for one thing, right? This book, this author, shouldn't be responsible for these 3 book IDs. Is that kind of weird? Yeah.
That also raises the idea of like having an integer as your book ID.
Yes. You can no longer have an integer in your primary key, foreign key relationship. You'll have to ask for an array. That's not very effective, right? Do you see how like it breaks if you have the relationship wrong? It's very painful to debug. 1, because it doesn't work, and 2, it just don't make no sense. You know what I'm saying? Right? So, probably shouldn't have went too hard with the examples. I'm gonna have to Command Z way too many times. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, great. Awesome. So, if you ever forget and you do it the other way around, it'll hurt. Just so you know, right? So the belongs to has the foreign key. Mike.
Well, I felt like when you were explaining that, you were about to say like, oh, it's a pain to like go through and like see which IDs belong for everything. So like, let's just say you didn't know, like you weren't staring at the database and you didn't know what ID was the author ID. Like how would you go about finding that?
That's a very good question. How would I go about finding all the books written by John?
Just doing the query of his name and then just seeing what the IDs came up.
Yeah? Okay. Would I be able to do it with the book ID in my author?
No.
Exactly. Yeah? Because I can't select star from and then like ask to join the books table, because guess what? I can't, because I already have the foreign key in my table. So how would I even be related to the books table? Right? I can't be like select star from, right? What, books where the author's .name is John? But like it doesn't work because I can't have that join anywhere. The join's not going to work because I don't have the ID to match it on the other table. All right? Raise your hand if you understood that. Oh yeah, so many. You guys are smart. All right. So I know I said that like it existed in a vacuum, right? That there will be a time where I will allow multiple authors on multiple books, right? Okay. I'm not a huge fan of this book list, but I'll play. So books and authors, where each book can have multiple authors, right? What type of relationship is this? Finally, we made it. Yay, yay. Right? How would we fix it? How would we do this many to many? We need some sort of join what? Join table, right? And what's that called? Authors table, right? What's the first thing in it? ID? Right? So remember, with the join table must know about what? The other 2 models. So how would I teach it that? Cool. And then money. So that means that for ID 1, ID 2, ID 3, right? Book ID 1. Who's the author? Your dad. Very good. And book ID 2? Who's the author? And book ID 3. Who's the author? 2. This is how this is working. All right. Ugh. All right. Mr. I'll make a man out of you. All right. And what's this? Just say Mulan. Right. I'm just mixing things up here. It's getting wild. So we have what? 4, 5. And then what book is this? 5. And what ID is it? So this is how that's working. Can everyone visually see what's going on? Each row will indicate one record in your database. And that's how we do many-to-many. That's why the concept of the join table makes sense. Let's prove it. All right. Write the SQL to find all the books written by John. How would I do it? Say again?
Select.
Cool. Oops. Select. Star. From. Books. Right? And then I need what? Where? Immediately? Am I going straight from books?
No, from books.
Straight from books, right to the book, right to the authors? All right. I need a what?
Oh, I wasn't going to answer that. I just had a question on the previous thing, but I can wait.
Let's finish this SQL, right?
Yeah.
So we have inner join, right? But remember, inner join is the same as. Very good. All right. And what are we joining? Remember, the squirrel only knows the tree through the nest. So what table am I joining? Book authors, right? And what am I joining them on? Right? What am I joining the books with the book authors on? They only share one common thing. And that is what? The book's ID. Because look, this comes first, this comes second, then comes a baby with a baby. No. Is equal to what? The book, what do I call it? Book authors. Dot books ID. So I need to connect the books with the book authors through the primary key and through the foreign key. That's how I'm doing that join, all right? But I need to get to authors. What's connecting these three? So from here, I'll need to do another inner join. And what two tables am I joining now? What's the other table I'm joining? Right? And how are these two tables related? On what? What table, what comes first? Yes, very good. Is what? Books, authors, dot, what? What shares this right here? What is shared? Huh? Yeah? And now, what am I looking for? Where what? The author's name is equal to Johnny Boy. That's how that SQL query works. And that's what it looks like, and that's what the join table is doing. I'm going to get to you, Mike, in a second. I didn't forget.
For the second on, why is it authors, then book authors? If book authors is first in the code.
To be perfectly honest, what should this return? Right? Is there a difference between 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2?
Okay, sorry, I just thought you were saying
Yeah.
for
So
the first one that
I do this, all right? And then when books comes, I do books. When this one comes, I do this. I can probably do it the other way around.
Okay, but so for the second on, it didn't matter the order. Just for the first one, it mattered.
I think the first one matters, yeah. I'm not sure if the second one matters. We can test it. But the problem is my data is in like ASCII art. So just test it next time. I should know the answer. I think it works either way. But It's been a long day. I don't want to like lie to you.
Okay.
Does anyone know?
If it matters which one you write first.
Yeah. I want to go. I'm gonna lean toward no, but prove me wrong. Does that make sense? Okay. Did I confuse you, or you just have a curiosity?
Well, I'm just because I thought you said for the first one it mattered that books ID came first and then books authors would. So then I was just confused why in the second one the order that they were equal to didn't matter.
I'll play. I'm pretty sure. I'm
Like
pretty.
if it doesn't matter, like
It doesn't matter, right? Yeah, it doesn't matter. For me, the only reason I do this in this order is I'm keeping track of the table in my mind. Right?
Okay,
I go, I want from the books, and I'm joining the book author, so I'm checking the book's ID on the book's author's foreign key. And like, just in my mind, I do this one first, then this one. If I'm doing a second join, I always just drop it right here so I don't forget, and then I already know what table I'm referencing.
okay.
This is just a Evans Wangism. So sorry if I confuse
It's
you.
just a formatting, not a functional thing. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Then that's fine.
Great. Is this on the SQL query or something else? Is it on this? Is it on this? Okay, what's up?
I have a question. So if you have like John is always the first one to join, is that always the case, or can you reverse the order? Like,
You cannot go books join authors
okay, so it's always the join.
because the books are only connected through the book ID here. Unless there was a book's ID on authors, right, I can't match this key. Because remember, book's ID is going to, first one is going to point to what book. The second one is going to point to what book. Right? Like if I used author's ID on 2, it's going to point to what book. Maybe not the right book. It's going to point to the correct author. So if I want the book, I need to go make sure I line up the correct book ID with the correct author ID first. And then I'd line up the author ID with the correct author. So join, then join.
So join table has to be right away. After
You only know, the squirrel only knows the tree through the nest.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, so in this example, we still only have, like, it's the many-to-many relationship between books and authors through book authors, but right now we only have one author per book, and so when you're querying below, and you're
We have
saying,
one author per book. Okay, I hear what you're saying.
yeah, like we haven't added a second author to the 100 Years War Volume 2, right, or Volume 1, whatever it is. There's still only one author for that book, which when we query below, we're effectively saying the author's ID equals book authors dot author's ID. But if there's theoretically 2 authors, then that author's going to have a second ID, but be linked to the book ID. Like if
Sure, I'll play.
Like if the book
6.
ID is like 4,
Right?
you're gonna
We have
another
book
4.
ID is 4. What book
Right.
is that? This one?
Yeah.
Let's just say somebody else also wrote this book, right? Like, definitely not your Wangtron, right? So I like collabed with him. That's where I actually made my fortune. So here and here says that on book ID 4, I have 2 authors.
Yeah.
That's a many-to-many, right? That book has 2 authors.
So when you ask for the author for that book, you're going to get both of those values back, right?
I'm looking for all the books where John authored them.
No, I know, but I'm saying if you were happen to be looking for who wrote book number 4, 100 Years War, you asked that in
SQL?
Yeah, anyways, you would get 2 4 back, right? You would get both values.
If I ran this query, I should get all the books where the author's name is John. The author's name is John. That's author ID number 2. I have author ID number 2 here, right? So for these 3, and I have book ID 2, 3, and 4, I would return 2, 3, and 4, which is 100 Years War, Volume 1, 2, and 3. That's what would happen.
I don't think that was what his question was.
That's not my question. My question is if you're asking me a whole new question, and your question was, who wrote book number 4, 100 Years War, Volume 3, and you've established a collaboration of authors, the system would return you 2 answers. 2.
That is correct. That was your question?
I guess how would you query it though? Because you still have John in.
We're talking about a completely different query. So you would write a new query that
Right.
started with select star.
Okay, can we see like what that would look like, or is that like?
You want me to like make this database right now to build?
No.
You want to write the SQL for it?
Yeah, for just like
Sure.
literally returning
I'll
the
play.
many to many, because I thought that was that's why we're creating the many to many relationship.
I'll play. Talk to me, Goose.
Okay, I mean it's select.
Very good.
But star everything
Sure.
from.
What table do you want it? What do you want? Tell me what you want.
I wanted to return just the book that has. So right now, the only book that has the 2 authors is 100 Years War, Volume 3.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we? Because basically, we already did it when there's only 1 author for the book. So how are we pulling it out, or we're only returning ID number 4, which is 100 Years War, Volume 3?
I understand what you're saying. What is your question? What are you trying to query?
That's what I'm trying to query. How do we return?
All the authors?
No. How do we return the book for ID 4, right? Because ID 4 is the only one that has 2 authors. We only ran a query that returned books from 1 author.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying when there's 2 authors per book, how do you do the query that returns the ID of the book that's owned by the 2 authors?
You want the one book that's... I see. Okay.
Yeah.
What an unrighteous work.
Because I thought that
So
was
where,
that's why we
and
did
then
many to many in the beginning.
I would just change this to the query that you're looking for. You want that one book where what? The author's
So
ID are...
John and like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Questions? And I'm killing that. Yeah. The reason I don't want to dive really deep into it is because that's Googleable SQL syntax. I want to spend the time teaching you how to connect the ORM.
Yeah, I mean, no, that makes sense.
Cool. Is that good enough for everybody? So does everyone understand how this is a many-to-many and how that's working? Awesome. Now's the time to ask questions. Great questions, by the way. All right. Gonna leave that out there. Oh, what's this? Yes. It's my favorite. Cool. Do you guys want to build this? Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think so either. That's out of control. So I built it for you, right? Yeah. Yeah. This lecture takes a lot of prep. So, as we've recently discovered, chipmunks are a type of squirrel. Yes. So, what is the SQL to find all the squirrels in the Christmas tree? I think this is what you were looking for, yeah? Cool. Select. What? Great. From? Awesome. Yes. Where? What? I need to join. What table am I joining? The nests. Very good. And then? On what? What does the nest and squirrels have in common? So I start with squirrel first. .id. And what does the nest have that links the squirrel? Cool. Right? And then now I'm trying to jump the tree. A little bit of this, a little bit of this. Right? On what? What does the tree and the nest have in common? Tree.name. Very good. I just heard name. And what does the nest and tree have in common? The tree ID, cool. And what am I looking for? Where the tree's name is. So this is actually going to return to me what? It is case sensitive. So if I spelled, I'm sorry. I should have done this. I should have done this. Thank you for that. I will fix that for the next lecture. And this one too. Great. You just ruined Christmas. That was harsh. I'm sorry. Christmas is saved. There's holiday decorations in the back. No, there really are. Yeah, but they're for Christmas. Yeah. So what should this return me? 2? 2? Just 3? Just Theo? How would I get more? What tree? ID is 2. And I also want, who else is in here? Great, Simon. Do you want another squirrel or no? Not really. Who cares? So this is what's going to happen, right? If I just get it for the name, it's going to return to me all the squirrels. Simon and Theo, right? These two goons. Yeah? Many and many. Check. Awesome. What? These guys are great. So, object relational mapper, right? Now we're going to try to combine them. Ruby and SQL, right? What are the 4 ways we can interact with data? How would I write, create a new column in the database, not like creating a table, right? How would I do a new column, a new row in my database? Cool. Let me do a little bit of this. Into what? Some table. Let's just call it books for now. Nothing wild. And what are we putting in there? Title. And what else? Author ID. Right? And what are the values for title and author ID? Some generic book. Right? Cool. Hold on. Volume 1. And what's the ID? 1. Great. How do we do it in Ruby? If I had a class book. Very good. DFI. Book.new. And I'd pass it in generic title. And I'd pass in. Looks familiar? Okay. So, interesting. What about read? How do I get all the data? From some table, right? And what do I want? Okay, sure. Sure. How do I write that exact thing in Ruby? Thank you, Sean. Cool. All right. Does that look familiar? Cool. Update. Very good. Some table, all right? And I'm going to reset those values. And what values am I setting? Huh? Sure. I want to reset the title. And what else? Maybe the author ID? I guess. Maybe I want to change it. I don't know. What values do I want to reset it to? Right? New edition. And who wrote it?
2.
No, 1 still. All right. Where what? Or that ID is 1? Because I have to find the book first, right? And how do I update in Ruby? Yes, Sean.
So, you just do like whatever the name of the book is, and then book.title equals new edition. Whatever.
Okay. That wasn't very hard, right? I'm just like resetting that value. Yeah? Ja? Are you there, Ja? It's me, Rostron.
Just really quick, when you update in a database, do you, if you're not updating the author ID, do you still need to put it in there for set?
No. That was just me being silly.
Okay.
Because I promised you a very interactive lecture because it's long. And I just wanted to say no to somebody. I needed those for me. Very good question. Anything else? Awesome. Cool. How do I just start guessing? Sure. Destroy. Right? Where what? The ID is equal to what? Who wrote a bad book? All right, sure. Very good. And then how do I get rid of a book? I call the instance, and then I call a method called, whoa, that was wrong. Very good, Froyo, that's the one. But there is if you make one, right? Def, destroy, and then what does it do? It just blasts it away, man. Just blasts it away. You can, but it will still exist with nil values. All right, so you just want to be able to delete the instance. Huh? For now, and there's something that I'm very going to smoothly transition to called active record. Active record will build some of these amazing methods for you, and destroy will just completely eliminate the instance. It never existed. Right? Cool. Speaking of active record, these are some of the rules, right? I wrote this down just to speed up this process. Each table in our database, right, whether it be books, nests, trees, authors, it's going to respond to a Ruby class. So you have a nest class, you have a nests table. The table is always plural. I should put that in there. Table, that sounds angry. Table is always plural, and the model / class is singular. Yeah? So squirrels table, squirrel class, squirrel model. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Instances of one of those classes are going to be represented as rows in our database. So when I have squirrel.new, and I give it a name of Chipper, that's going to create a new instance of squirrel. That is also going to be reflected in my squirrels database as primary key ID 1, the name Chipper. So again, the instance will be represented as a row within the database. The visuals should help, but I can't do it all.
Somewhat tangential, but SQL semantics. If you destroy a row in SQL, do the auto increment that's in rows auto increment to reflect that?
No, if I destroy one, Alvin is still 2. It will not change the primary key. Primary keys are always and forever.
And then if you insert into, you will create a new one, and you'll increment from the last value.
If I insert into, what does insert into do? It will just, so if I destroyed one, right? Chipper sucked anyway, right? Whatever. There's only 3. I made a new one, it's gonna be 5. Good question. Yeah, instances refer to rows in my database.
You could manually set.
A primary key? Can you manually set a primary key? The answer is no. I'm listening.
I'm just curious, like, wait, you said when you destroy an instance, the primary key just doesn't change.
Nope.
So, but I'm like, I mean,
Uh-huh.
it would make more sense to just start over from like 1
least you're choosing.
What you're saying, yes. What you're saying, right, looks good, but it don't make no sense, right? So like if I had 1 here and I destroyed it, and I made this next one 1, right? And I for whatever put 4th Musketeer, guess what? The 4th Musketeer is now in tree 1, according to the rest of my data.
Right, no, that's what
What's your question?
is that like when you delete the numbers go back down, so it's like algorithm will now be 1 and now be 2.
Right. Okay. In that exact same vein, if I delete a chipper and I auto-reduce these back down,
Okay.
I will have a chain reaction that will mess things up. Yeah?
So when you delete the row, you delete the entire table.
When I delete the row, the primary key is lost forever.
So you can update the number 1 spot based on
Would I want to reinstantiate the primary key for somebody else to be primary key number 1? Is that your question?
Yeah.
No.
You can't do that.
Well, let me ask you this. Why would you want to?
If you deleted something and then you decided you want to replace it with something else.
With the primary key?
Not the primary key. You want, as in the number 1 spot of the tree, you want a different name.
Then I would update.
So you can update the number 1 spot and it would change the name.
Yeah, Chipper was a crappy name anyway. I would just change Chipper's name to like sadder or something. Whatever other adjective you like. Yes.
Okay, so if you delete the primary key in Squirrel, what happens to the S?
That's a very good question. It messes up the rest of your database. There is a concept that I'll teach you later called dependent destroy. If any other of your data depends on that object, also get rid of it. So anything that has squirrel ID 1, gone.
It does. So that thing you're teaches will do that.
Yes, the thing I will teach you will do it. If you don't add a dependent destroy, it will leave this in there and will be normally, under normal circumstances, unattainable. But the row will still exist. Does that make sense?
The row,
Like for example, if I deleted Chipper, right, who was, I'm gonna fix this, bluggle, bluggle, bluggle,
yeah,
right? If I deleted 1
yeah.
and I did not dependent destroy, this record will still exist in my database, but I will not be able to query it because I will never be able to write like a SQL unless I hard-coded the ID to give me back 1, which will never make sense because I won't actually have an ID of 1 for my squirrel. Because remember, it's going to check this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah? Great questions. A little bit too into SQL though. So SQL is great. This is all I need you to understand. Right? This is all I need you to understand from SQL. So if you wanted to go really hard on labs tonight, don't do it on SQL. Yeah? And if you don't understand this, you know, like, kind of go hard on SQL. But this is all you really need to understand. All right? Active Record will do a lot of magic for you. But this is the baseline. Yes?
One more dumb question.
Sure it's not.
So the book is obviously connected to the authors, which is why we did the books first in that instance. Does it matter which instance you join first? Like which tables, which IDs you're joining? Or if you go up, it says like join choice.
Yes. So I'm at squirrel.
Yeah.
Right. I'm at squirrel.
Yeah.
The squirrel only knows the tree
Right. Yeah.
through
Through the nest.
sweet. So if I did in a different order tree, can I jump from squirrel to tree?
Okay, I didn't realize it was the join table. That makes sense.
All right. How y'all feeling? Cool beans?
This was actually awesome.
Thank you. This lecture takes a lot out of you. So how do we persist data, right? This is the problem that we're ultimately trying to solve. All right, what I can do is, what file is this? Tweet. All right. I forgot to talk about something very important. Who has seen this before? Raise your hand if you understand what this is doing. All right. Who did the metaprogramming labs? That makes sense. So, give me 2 seconds. What time is it? Okay. I'm gonna leave the vote to you. All right.
I mean, it's just throwing those things into a hash.
So the reason I don't really respond is because I don't know how to respond to you. So sometimes, this is not to single you out, right? This is like to help formulate your thoughts. If you were talking to me and I went, so you're just, not even, I'm sorry, so your jest is a question. Just, you're doing this. Yes. And then you shrug your shoulder. I don't know how to help respond to that. So, this is a concept called metaprogramming, right? You can pass in a hash as a single argument to the define initialize method, which is called when you instantiate a new instance of a class, and it will, without order, initialize a new instance. Order does not matter. Can everyone just follow this code? Raise your hand if you can follow this code. If you can follow the define initialize. Okay, so it is not worth jumping into. I will have to manually create it the long way, and then I will refactor it for those that understand. And for those that don't, just see me offline, yeah? All right, cool. So, the problem that we're trying to solve is, where am I? Cool. I want to make a new tweet, right? What is that? Lib? I can't see it from here. Cool. Ruby. I need to do this bad boy right here. A little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. Oop, just kidding. Butterfingers. Right. Cool. I'm in lib, and I need tweet.rb. Yeah? Cool, cool. All right, so I'm gonna hit the binding. I wanna make a new tweet. How do I do that? Right. What this is saying is I can pass in a hash, and the key of message for the hash will be the value for message. That's all it's saying. I could go into it, but it takes a little bit. So I have a hash, yeah? Bloop. And I have a key of message. And that points to a value of, what's like a fun tweet, right?
No, it's Donald Trump.
All of those are fun. Mad fun, right? I love teaching. So, what else? What else we have? We have a key of username. And that points to, huh? The Pope is better, right? Let's not make this about me. Although that was fun. And then ID, right? What's ID? Boop, 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 boop. Let's go this one. Yeah? Is that better? Yeah? So notice ID is kind of first, even though I passed it in last. I can put these in any order I want because of the way the keys respond to the values in a hash. Awesome. So, God dang it. It's okay, I have my friend here. Cool. Right? So I made this new tweet. The problem is when I exit, where's T1? Gone. My tweet is gonerized, unfortunately. Is that like a good experience for like Twitter, right? Or like Instagram, if you like post it and then you shut the app down and all of a sudden like your post is gone. That's probably not okay. You want your data to persist, right? You want your tweet to exist after you've logged off from the library because you couldn't afford a computer and times were rough back in 2005. Maybe that was really specific, who knows? But you want it to exist, right? You want to persist your data. That's the problem. The nice thing is that if you created data inside your database and then just made calls to the database, that data will still exist. Does that make sense? I can make a record in my database, and then instead of just pulling it from like RAM or flash memory or from my shell, when I shut it down and I turn it back up, I can pull from a database instead, because the database will still have that data. Yeah? So let's do that. Let us map that data. When I first get a brand new file, what do I always say? I do say test, but I say something before that. I also say read the README. Very good. This is the README. Yeah? What does these look like? You have to understand what it is that you're doing with your application. So go through the files, see how the files are talking to each other, and understand how the application is put together and how it's working. Right? So I've done this a few times. Let's start. Bin run. Cool. What is bin run? Right? It's doing something called require relative for the environment, and then it's making this what? This class, it's instantiating it and immediately calling a method named call on the instance of tweet. So far, so good? What does that really do? I'll probably find out in the tweets app in that class. So I'll take a look at it later. What's config environment do? It's doing something called require bundler. Who knows what bundler is? I talk about gems yet? Cool. So bundler allows you to manage all of your Ruby gems. Ruby gems are a block of code that somebody else has written that allows you to have some sort of functionality, right? Okay, I guess we'll do this. It's worth it because it's fun. Boop, 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 boop. And I think it's this one. Cool. Right? Let's check this out. So, believe it or not, I may or may not have made one. There it is. Cool. So I just installed this gem called Wangtron. Big whoop, right? I can go into IRB, and I can require, just like I would pry, a gem. True. Right? So did you learn about inheritance a little bit? Cool. Wangtron is my module. I have a namespace. I have a class that's underneath it called gains. And I have a method inside this class called get. Hopefully, I should be getting gains. And it returns swole. I can see why I'm stereotyped now. This is my fault. This is definitely my fault. I have to change my persona. So, this is a module, a class, and a method inside. It allows you access to somebody else's code that does something. Swole doesn't do anything right now, but just imagine somebody wrote some really useful code, right? And they're called gems. So it's something in my gem file. right? It's downloading something from Ruby gems, right? I'm going to download these two gems, SQLite 3 and Pry. So I no longer have to require Pry everywhere. Pry will now be installed inside my application. Does that make sense? Yeah, I have all the information in the code from Pry, as well as this gem called SQLite 3, right? SQLite 3. So what SQLite 3 does under the hood is it allows me to write directly to a SQLite 3 database file with Ruby. Somebody else wrote this genius code for me, so I can just do this gem. I can install this gem, and then I can immediately start using their classes and their modules. It's crazy. So powerful, right? So what you should do is, once you have a gem file, what you should be doing is running a command called bundle install. What that's going to do is it's going to install all the gems and all of those gems dependencies within your application so that you will have access to all of it. It also locks in the current version you're on, so that this application will be locked to this version, so that every single time I run it, even if these gems ever get updated, I can ensure the same functionality. Let's just say at some point I change that method from get to got, and you called get, it would break because I renamed it. But if I was still using the old version and it was still named get, this is a bad example, right? It would still work because you're still locked onto that old version. You never updated. Who avoids Windows updates or updating their OS on their Mac, right? Why? Because functionality changes. If you were able to stay on that same version, you can guarantee you know exactly all the keyboard shortcuts, right? You know exactly how to open a file. You know how long it took me to understand how to save a file on a Mac when they updated? I was like, this is wild. So this locks your gems so that you always have that same consistent experience. That's why we ask you to use Ruby 2.33. Because Ruby added a lot of functionality and deprecated some things in the newer versions of Ruby. So that because I know 2.33, it's documented here, the other instructors have been teaching it, I can ensure that I will see the same or similar errors. If you updated to 2.51 and then you had a weird bybug error, it's hard to debug it because I don't know 2.51 as well as 2.33. Does that make sense? So that's the importance of Bundler. You can manually update your gems. Not the point right now. Gems, somebody else's code. Bundler handles all your gems and those versions. That's all you need to know. Yeah? Do you guys need a break? Do you need a break? Is it too much right now? Okay. Take a legitimate 6-minute break. All right? Apparently 2 minutes is not enough. I don't know how to do this. God bless you. Mega bless. How do I pause this recording? Come on.
Yeah, I know how I'm tired and so much fast learning, but this is actually really interesting. So
Cool.
So, you know,
Great.
yeah.
I did the bonus.
Hold down Alt. Press Escape to bring up the recording bar. Okay? A is for airborne. So, we have this. We have the environment. I'm sorry. We had the bin run. I talked about the gem file. Talked about bundle install. Config environment. What bundler.require is going to do is it's going to go through the gem file and require every single one of these gems. So, in the same way that it would say require SQLite 3 and require pry, that's what this one line does. It's very nice if you have 10, 15, 20 gems. You don't have to like write require every single time. Yeah? This right here is just a constant. It's just a capital DB. That's all it is. It is just, in fact, a hash. So, what is con, right? It's short for connection. So if this is a hash, this must be a key. Points to a value of SQLite 3 database.new. This is Wangtron. This is gains, right? It's just a module, probably with the class of database, that gets instantiated. And in the initialize method, looks like it takes some sort of DB file. That's all it is, right? If you wanted to see that written out super fast, I'm talking about a little bit of this, all right? All right, and in there is a class, database, and then in there is this, and it must take some sort of file, right? Something like that. That's basically what's happening here. Any questions on this? Cool. I'm just gonna leave this in here as a friendly neighborhood reminder. So all I'm doing is I'm going into my DB, I'm checking the key, and I'm asking it, right, for this method called results as a hash, and I'm setting that Boolean to true. If I don't, it's going to return to me an array, and that's not as fun of a data structure to work with when I need key values, right? When I need to point from this one book, what's the name, right? If I have a bunch of arrays, it's hard to have that association. So that's why I'm asking it to return as a hash. You will see this later, and it will make more sense when I set it to false, and you'll see it. And then I'm just asking to make this combo file. I'm pulling in my two models, right? From lib, my tweet, and tweets RB. I mean, tweets app. My database, right, is not human readable. In my live folder, I showed you this, and I have this tweets app. So remember, tweets app.new.call. It's calling on this method named call, and it's going to be doing this. Welcome to Twitter, enter username, it's going to get it again, and then it's going to make a tweet with the hash, with the username and the message. It's going to save it, and then it's going to create a new variable with all my tweets, and then it's going to render tweets. Any questions on this? What render is going to do is just puts out each of my tweets. Cool? And that's essentially what this whole thing is doing. All right? Any questions? There's this last file that's really important. It's really important to understand, and it's really useful in production. Probably won't get too much value out of it here, but there's a concept called rake. All right? Rake is a builder in Ruby, and you can program it to do anything you want, right? Metaprogramming. So Ruby can write Ruby, Ruby can read Ruby, Ruby can do anything you want. Ruby can execute Ruby for you. Okay? So, let's do it. Just kidding, JK, right? So I can call it by calling rake and then passing it an argument. This task is called console. I can take a look at all my tasks. Just kidding. Look up. So I could take a look at all my tasks. Right now it's just oh, I didn't save it. I had a file in here. This. Bloop. It was hidden. So I can make my own tasks. I can describe it, and I can tell it what to do. Right? Here, there's a task called console, and all it's going to do is it's going to start a brand new pry session. The reason this is important is because I require relative config environment, and in config environment, I have access to my models, and I have access to the database. So, as if you needed more, starting the pry right here with a require relative for environment is essentially going to be how I can execute and call my new combo. Right? I'm going to have access to all my methods, all my instances, all my models, and the database. Who got lost? Cool. Pry.start is essentially a different way of calling binding.pry. Binding.pry is going to pause the execution of my code. Pry.start is just going to start a brand new pry session. It's going to start it, but it's going to have everything from config environment. Everything in config environment is going to be my models, my database as a hash, my database, and all my gems. So pry.start with config environment is going to give me access to everything inside my app. Yeah? Config environment requires everything, and then pry.start is just going to start a new pry session without pausing the code anywhere, but with everything loaded. All right? Let's test. So I can call rake console, and what is that going to give me? I mean, sorry, rake bark. It's just going to go bork, 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 right? Like a big old woofer. Dodge? Beams? All right. I can call Ruby console, and all it's going to do is start up a brand new pry session with access to my instances.
So does that mean you don't have to write binding.pry in your...
At the end of any combo file, correct. Rake console will pull in everything for me. So start from the bottom. Now we're rake console. Yeah? Awesome. So let's write Ruby. I'm going to go back to my tweets, right? This looks familiar. Yeah? What do I actually want in here? What I want to show you, where is that file? Environment? Yeah. What I want to show you is this right here is just a key value pair, right? I can do some cool stuff, right? First thing I want to do is I want to check what is the class for this. It's a SQLite 3 database. That's what kind of object it is, because everything in Ruby is an object. Right? It's all coming back or not, doesn't matter. I can in fact do something called execute on it. I can always call .methods and see all the cool methods that are on there, right? But there's like too many, right? Oof, it's wild. One of them is execute. And believe it or not, what this amazing execute method will do is it will take SQL. Yeah? What I probably want to do though is I probably want to make one. Probably want to like make a tweet. So if it's going to do that, how do I make a new tweet? We just did it. What's the CRUD functionality? Right? And when I need a message and I need a username. Yeah? What are the values? Walking on the treetop all day long. Right? And who did it? Yeah, sure. Probably. But we'll see if it takes it without it. This always happens. No, I don't think that's it. Expect. Oh, it is. Right? No, semicolon. Oh, yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Punk. Yeah. So that's like, if anyone had any questions on like the double quotes or the single quotes, the double quotes allows you to string interpolate, but if you use double quotes everywhere, I'm essentially ending the string here. I'm starting a new string, and then I'm starting a new string, and then I'm like ending a string for no reason, right? So the difference between like double and single is important here. So let's see if that worked. Boom.
So if it, but you're returning right here an array, but
dbcon will execute SQL, right? I didn't show this to you, but in my lecture prep, I created the table. And all that table does is it pulls in, doesn't pull in anything. It just asks for a username and a message. I think we can try to find it. You want to find it? Yeah, here it is. Create table tweets. It's just a message. It's a text, username, text. Cool? So I created this like when I was like away and you were like listening to Avi, because Avi's like awesome. No other comment. Avi's awesome, yeah. All right, great. Awesome. So I now have this, right? Notice how it's an array of a hash. I have a key value pair, so I can, if you guys like chaining methods, first it's going to give me the actual hash, and then I can call message. All right, there we go. Is that better? More better? And that should give me what? I lose anybody? So if you're like not strong in hashes, this is all you have to do. Can I access keys and values? All right, like even here, dot first is what? The hash. Dot keys. Give me that, Chris Brown. Give me. Yeah? That's it. Knowing what I know now, and the awesome power of awesome, what can I do? With the drunken sailor, what can you do? What can you do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? All right. What can I do? I'm lazy. Boom. Huh? Oh yeah, sorry. When you create this, it creates these key value pairs, right? That's what returns value as a hashes. It will also do this extra stuff for you. It's just not worth looking into. If you want to know what it is, you can Google it, and if you still don't understand, I'll touch base with you one-on-one. The key and important thing is this. It will make this for you into your database. All right? Select star from tweets as a key value pair. That's why I triggered results as a hash, because if I didn't, or was it environment? Let's set that to false. Cool. Array console. I can do select star from tweets, and it'll give me an array. That's not super useful, right? That's why I wanted this bad boy. Yeah? Does that make sense now? Awesome. So, armed with that knowledge, this self.all, I can have it run this code. So, let me do that. I can do tweet, right? And what kind of method is that? This is a really annoying bug to debug. Did I not save this file? Where is this thing? Ugh, come on. No implicit conversion of array into string. Oh. Let's take a short break. Let's take a 6-minute break, all right? Let's take a 6-minute break. I have to debug this, and it's a pain. If you want to like stand by, I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do. But in the meantime, so what a here doc is I can do something called SQL, I can equal it, and there's a special syntax for it. I'm like losing my mind. I forgot to write it. Okay, yeah. It's these two arrows followed by any word you want, right? Like word. And then to end it, it's just you say it again. And now this will take any sort of string and it will be like spacing material, line breaking material, right? So like I can do, in fact, something like this. Oh, snap. Just kidding. Right? And I can just feed it SQL. If you pass in a particular keyword that matches a language that the here docs will recognize, it will highlight the keywords for you, the syntax.
If we want to, if we do that code, like do literally anywhere.
Any word you want. If you put in a keyword for a language it recognizes, it will highlight for you. Yeah? So let's test. And it still returns. Yeah? Any questions on this? But these are
When is the best time to use
the here docs. The here docs just allow you to execute a lot of code, a lot of strings, but it doesn't factor in like these return carriages and stuff. So you can write a bunch. Like let's say you had those from like the README, you had all those extra joins, right? You could put it in a here doc and then just have it run that variable, so that you don't have to plug that whole thing into here, which is like really unreadable. Does that make sense? So right now what we have is we have all these hashes, right? But what we want are tweet instances. Yeah? So stay with me, all right? I can go through, all right? I can use a map. And what are these? These are just tweet infos, right? Information on the tweet. That's what the result is, right? They're each individual hashes. Remember, this comes in an array. So when I map through, the first object I get is a hash. The second object I get is a hash. With each one of these, I probably want to just make a new tweet with that tweet info, because I can pass in the hash that we talked about before, and it should instantiate a new instance based on that hash value, right? As long as the keys match up. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, nobody was wondering why that highlighting was just all jacked up, right?
I figured that was a special thing.
Yeah. So instead of the tweet info, right? This is the refactored version, right? This is like the mo better version. For those that can't see it, I have an ID, a username, and a message. So I would pass it in an object, right, with the key of message, and that is going to point to the tweet info, that hash, and all I'm going to do is call that key. All right, I'm going to have a username, and I'm going to have it point to the tweet info, which is again the hash. All right, and I just want the key of username, because I have a key of username and a key of message that I just want to return chirp chirp and your boy to go into message and to go into username. So either one will work. This is the cleaner code. Yeah. So what I should see when I finally return is when I call tweet.all, I should see my tweet instances. And that is combining SQL and Ruby, because I'm executing SQL, returning Ruby in a method that I already understand and know. This initialize, again, I'm just passing in a hash. H is just props. I have a method called save. Again, these are just here docs. So insert into tweets, right? Into the table. I have a message, I have a username, and now I have these question marks. Who knows what these question marks are? What are the question marks? Yes. So right now, I'm going to call save. I don't actually know what these are going to be until I call save on an instance of tweet, because this is an instance method. So I call these question marks because I don't know what they are yet. I want to be able to pass in some sort of arbitrary value at some point, all right? So I'm going to execute the SQL, which again is the insert into, and the first argument is going to be this question mark. The second argument is going to be these. The reason I do this is because users are grimy, right? Users are like not nice people. I can put anything I want into this and SQL will execute it. So if I wanted to, right, what happens when I put that colon in SQL? It ends the statement, right? So I have this other amazing method called tweets app. Can you guys follow along what this does? All right. So let's do it. Ruby, lib, tweets, tweets app. What's it called? Underscore. Huh?
Tweets underscore app.
Oh, it's S. That's what it is. Embarrassing. Just kidding. Where's the one that was calling it? Oh, this one. Tweets.app.call, right? And that's in bin run. So Ruby bin run. It's gonna run this, right? I can enter a username like coffee dad, right? I love coffee. And there it is. There's my tweet, right? This is like from the old mod. If I run it again, right, and I put my username as coffee dad, guess what else I can do? I can end the statement, and I can do something like this. And it will kill everything, right? Because SQL is like, great, cool, that's awesome code, and it will run. This is known as SQL injection, all right? So you can literally tell it to do. If you just know SQL and you see that someone's running an SQL database, you could just put bad data in. This is called SQL injection. Very grimy. Do not do it, right? So the reason we do this is because it will first check to see that you're not doing anything crazy like drop table, or it's not doing like another insert into another table where, like, if I wanted to be really grimy, enter a username, I can enter in, like, I don't know, something. And then if I knew my friend's username, I can insert into, right? Or I can maybe, like, be really grimy and update that my friend's username to something else. It's really grimy, right? This is called SQL injection. So the reason we pass in these question marks is so that we can pass in a message later. Remember, this is an instance, right? So that instance has what attributes? So instead of this, I can pass in right? And this is going to prevent anyone from using like SQL injections to mess with my database. And that's really about it. So then the nice thing is in tweets.app, I'm making a new tweet, and until I save it, right? Remember, instance method. It doesn't actually go into the database, right? Doesn't really go in the database until I call this instance method called save. So the key thing here is making a new one in Ruby. Save is a method that talks to the database and actually inserts that record into the database. And then it should give me what? All the tweets? Something like that? So that's what you saw? So a key important thing here is Ruby will not touch the database. SQL will touch the database. So Ruby is messing with your models and your classes. SQL is actually touching your database. It will actually insert into and commit information to your database. All right? So just calling a .new does not mean that it is in your database. Sorry for all the weird hiccups. I'm sorry this lecture ran really long. What are your questions?
What's the index? The one with the index?
Each with index, right? You pass it in 2 parameters.
Parenthesis one. So,
Each with index parentheses 1. I'll tell you offline. Any other questions? Save new, SQL, Ruby, ORM.
Can you make it save on initialization?
Can I make it save on initialization? Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can. If I wanted to, right? Like here, I would just save it right after it initializes. I mean, I could just probably, you know, add save it. You should not know. You should not. Because what if the user puts in something weird, right? Like they entered a blank statement for username. Maybe in my tweets, I'll put something like if self.message, right? Empty string. Then like execute this code, something like that. So then I only want the save to happen under correct parameters. You know what I mean? Good question. Boom. Anything else? It's like awesome. Thanks for your time today.